Welcome back to Zero Gravity Live, the weightless weekly tech talk podcast, bringing all the latest discussions right to you. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, can you please ring that bell, subscribe, and give us a like? Trying to increase our presence there, and we appreciate you so much if you did. And if you're listening on the podcast platform, consider leaving us a nice review. And if you're watching us live, we want to know where you're tuning in from. I'm in sunny Central Florida myself, and I'm curious, where are all of you watching from? So let us know in the comments on your platform of choice, and we are excited to give you some shout outs if you do let us know. I'm joined by my two best friends, as always, Matt Price, Sterling Wilson. Folks, how y'all doing this week?
Doing good. I'm a little jealous. You talked about sunny Florida. It is incredibly thunderstormy Kennesaw, Georgia, where I'm at. So I'm just crossing my fingers that the power stays on.
Oh, no. Well, if Matt drops off, we know why. Sterling, how are you
doing? For sure. We're doing a little better here. I am in beautiful Baltimore, Maryland for this broadcast. And so the weather's okay. There's a lot of local news going on here. So, we're just hoping for the best for everything. But, it could be worse here. Could be worse.
Yeah. Be careful crossing those bridges this week, Sterling.
Oof. Indeed, we will.
Yes. Well, I see we do have someone joining us from Pamplona, Spain. That's awesome. Thanks for joining us, Luis. We appreciate having you here. Let's do a little what's going on in the office. Y'all wanna show me some cool stuff? Every week I'm impressed by the gadgets and gizmos we got going here.
So you go first, Sterling, then I'll go.
Sounds good. I'll kick this off today by something that can help you simplify your life and kind of make things a little more cohesive. Mm-hmm. We've talked on this show quite a bit about home automation. And when you're into home automation, you tend to fall in several camps. We've talked a little bit about that. Essentially, the technology that runs your home automation, you pretty much have to build around it. Certain things that are compatible with one set may not be compatible with another set around. So what do? We're starting to see these catch-alls, the Googles and the HomeKit in some ways, and Matter. So there's several that are going to come around and kind of grab all of them. But what do when you have some of these appliances that just aren't smart that you want to bring into these ecosystems that are really starting to grab everything? Well, I bring to you the smart plug.
Oh, no.
This little smart plug right here will change your life. Anybody who's listening, tell me, or watching, tell me if you've ever used one of these things. To make a long story short, you plug anything, your toaster, your coffee. Thank you. I'll be here all week. You can plug in your lamps. You can plug in your vibrating back thing on that chair that you use in your office. You know you're using it.
Vibrating back thing?
Vibrating back thing. Everybody has a vibrating back thing. You can plug that into this. And this turns everything into something smart. So if you're looking for a stopgap, if you're looking for something that will work with some of those catch-alls that we're starting to see, but you just have a couple pieces that you want to bring into the 2020s from the 80s or 90s, a smart plug is your way to go. And everybody, that's what I bring to you today. What do you all think?
That's so epic because I have those things everywhere. And I'll tell you, prime example of where it's number one most use case for me, when you put up your Christmas tree.
Yes.
And you don't want to like snake around behind it to plug in the lights every night. You just plug in the lights into one of those, you set your schedule, and bingo.
Absolutely. So that is my solution to simplify your life today.
Oh, everybody loves the vibrating back thing. You need to trademark that. That's great. The other cool thing about those, Sterling, is some of them can actually track like wattage usage and things like that. So you can actually start seeing exactly how much your coffee pot is using power wise and things like that. So so those are super handy, and they make waterproof ones so you can run them outdoors as well as indoors. So guilty as charged. I don't have the vibrating back thingy, but I do have a lot of the plugs.
I'll send you a link after the broadcast.
I do have one of those Theraguns that like does the percussion.
Exactly. There you go.
Mine's not plugged into a smart plug.
I might be overkill on that one.
Might be just a little bit. Thanks, Sterling.
Indeed.
Matt, what you got for us today?
Well, I've got something that I used to use, Anthony, as you know, because I think I shared with you what it used to be for, but I'm curious to see how many people still rock the Raspberry Pis.
I have that same taste.
I love this thing, and I used to run ads. Was it AdSense that we ran, here at the house? And basically, it's just like an ad blocker for your whole home internet. But Ubiquiti now has that built in, so it was literally just a checkbox that I could turn on with all of my Ubiquiti gear. So I didn't really need it anymore. And the other thing that I found is, I don't know if you've had this problem, Anthony, but at some point when power would go off, this little guy wouldn't turn itself back on.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to go down and actually hit the power button to bring it back. And the issue is when you run something like Pi-hole or AdSense, that becomes your DNS server. So if this isn't running, you're not browsing anything.
Yeah.
So that became a little bit of a challenge. So I disabled it. And, I've been searching probably for the past, 3 months on and off, just here or there, to try to come up with some really good uses. And I know a lot of people run Kubernetes clusters on like clusters of these things, but I'm more gearing it towards, like you said, Sterling, something with a home automation in mind. I've got a QNAP NAS that actually runs Homebridge and some of the other things that I use for home automation, just because, believe it or not, it's actually more powerful than this guy, just from a containers perspective. One thing that actually came up just yesterday, that this is why I pulled this out, because it was on my desk, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to look into this, see if I can make it work. For those Apple users out there, sorry, Sterling, there's something called AirPrint. If you guys have seen it, right?
Yes.
So your iPhone, your iPads, or whatever, even your Mac to some degree, although you can add a normal printer, with Mac OS. But for any of these mobile OS applications in the Mac ecosystem, it would be super convenient, to your point, Sterling, to take something that's old, bring it up to modern times, so I could literally hit AirPrint from any iPhone or iPad. I've needed that so many times. Instead, have to email the document to myself, go open it on an actual, computer, print to the normal printer. And the funny thing is, shout out to another life ago when I was working back in 2008, I think it was, I got to keep a Dell 3110.
Oh, come on.
EN.
I remember those.
Color laser printer. It's about, I can't even get it in the shot. It's about yay tall.
Yeah.
Super heavy, has like 3 individual color cartridges plus the black toner.
Oh, yeah.
That thing, I refuse to get rid of it. It is a workhorse. It is amazing. It's still rocking, knock on wood, over a decade later. So I would love to be able to take this guy and enable it for AirPrint.
Nice.
Thoughts on Raspberry Pis, to the group in the audience?
I have run 2 simultaneously. One is running AdGuard Home.
AdGuard, yeah,
is just great. Love it. I do have the issue where if I live in Florida, so the power grid gets hit by lightning, I do have to go hit the button and restart it, because otherwise no one's streaming or browsing anything in the house. But it's a small price to pay for never having to deal with ads. I love it for that. My second one is running the I forget the name of the software. You probably know, Matt. It allows Nest and other non-HomeKit devices to be shown on HomeKit.
Homebridge.
Homebridge, yeah. So my second one, which is a 3B, is running Homebridge, but my 4 is running AdGuard Home, and they're great. I love them. I used to run RetroPie on them that had a little old arcade machine, but Sensor just replaced that, and now they're just fully functional, and they do such a good job. Zero complaints.
Yeah, I mean, for the price of those things, the way you can stack them, the way you can build them, I've messed around with them really only while I was I like to kind of build things out of different LCD screens, take different LCDs, certain touch screens, and kind of messing around with some of the parameters there. So not as in depth with the ad blockers and things that you all are doing. Messed around a little bit with some home automation, but for the price, everybody's got to have a couple of these around, and they are great for stopgaps or to create the simplicity that you're talking about, Matt. I mean, it's kind of funny how our first 2 things that we're showing today is really a way to take something that's either more complicated and make it more simple, or it's some way to bring something that we still want to be able to use into today's tech. And so I just love that really the Raspberry Pis were that first true bridge into that, to be able to do those things on the cheap.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I think I was watching, I know I've mentioned Linus's Tech Tips before, but I think I was watching one of his videos a while back, and they actually put this thing through its paces to see if you could legit use it as a computer, for your day-to-day. And for lightweight browsing and like email checking, in theory, you could rock this as your main computer. So when you think about it, to your point, I mean, it couldn't get much simpler than that.
Yeah.
Plug in, HDMI cable and maybe a USB dongle for your mouse and keyboard, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, they were in short supply, weren't they? Like 2 years ago, I believe, during COVID. And it was so bad. I was living in DC at the time. It turns out that certain the scooters that you can rent, all the different Bird had them in the different kinds. They use small versions of Raspberry Pis inside of them for the GPS trackers. People started breaking into those things to steal them. They were in that short of supply.
Wow,
that's what I remember about those pies for sure.
So I feel like we would be remiss if I didn't capitalize on that segue, because I don't think this was planned at all. But this is my topic, Sterling.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. All right. That was not planned, everyone. That's
nobody planned this. I was like, you said Bird scooter. I'm like, wait a minute. Are you looking at my screen? Okay. So shifting gears a bit into these topics, right? I again, we did not plan this, but I have to know, and I have to like bring this topic up. I've got a personal experience with this, and I absolutely loved it. And I know people get on there and they've had wrecks. And of course, there's, people that aren't exactly, I don't know, scooter inclined, and, it can be intimidating. But at one point when I was at Veeam, we had a workshop in Paris, France. And we were over there in Paris, France, and there was about 4 of us. It was the one and only time I took my wife along on a work trip in over 10 years. So my wife and I, my old boss, Jose, shout out to you, Jose, and one other guy at the time, we literally got on these Lime scooters and went all through the city of Paris. And it was a fantastic way to go see the city, in my opinion, right? Because you just scan your phone, back to your point of being simple. If you've got the app and you already have that set up, sure, you need to go through, add your credit card and stuff like that. But once that's done, you scan the QR on the scooter, it unlocks it, and you're good. And you just start cruising. And to me, especially when you're in a congested area with a ton of cabs and, it's just gridlock traffic, this is amazing because we were able to get places, go in and grab a coffee and just leave them parked there. To me, I love this idea, but I feel like much like our iPhone and Android debates, there's no real middle ground. People either absolutely hate these things and hate the idea of them, or they embrace them and use them. And I'll give you an example. When we were in Paris, we had a couple guys like try to step out in front of us. One guy was like trying to stick his foot out to trip us. So some of the people just despise the things. But to me, like from a business model standpoint, as well as a practical user experience, the business model is every night they pay people to go pick these up, charge them, and set them back at certain locations for the next day. So it's almost like if you want to make extra money, there's that element of it. You've got a truck or a van, you go pick up a load of these things, charge them at your house, and take them back and put them in predetermined places so they're ready for the next day. Then the users get to consume them. So like as a business owner perspective, you're really hands off, right? It almost like runs itself. So to me, and this is the same thing with Bird, and I know Uber has them now. There's also bikes that I saw. Not really a big fan of the bikes. I much prefer the scooters, but hey, if you'd rather have a bike, they got that, and they're all electric, right? So it's the e-bikes. But curious to hear y'all's thoughts on this, because for me, let's preface it with, in the right setting, these are amazing.
Well,
go ahead, Sterling.
I was just going to say, I'm over here getting all charged up because first of all, it's tough for me because you guys know I'm a motorcyclist. So I'm just like, go get on a motorcycle. What are these little weird things right here? No, but in all seriousness, I think this can be one of those scenarios of where there is the idea of how everything should work, and then there is the reality. And Matt's huge caveat in his last comment makes me kind of fall in line to what he was saying. But living in the city, DC, Baltimore, spend half the time in San Diego. Listen, I've seen these things pulled out of water. I've seen them, jumped and ridden into things. I've seen, they park them in places where they shouldn't park them. I see, people driving perhaps a bit inebriated that shouldn't even be on them, and they're in the middle of the street. So there are all of these ways that they sort of have actually come to be. I think when used for their proper use, really to get around town. And remember, this really goes back to the original Segway. It was really supposed to change our society the very same way that this middle ground ended up doing. We were supposed to have a society of Segways. So this coming to fruition, I see it. I have used them in the past. They go faster in some cities, by the way, than they do others. Some are limited within the city confines. I'm not completely sold on them just because of the overall collective society and how I've seen them treated. Anthony, what do you think?
Society of Segways is my new band name. So thank you, Sterling. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've never been on one of these, but I used to live in a small town, and it has since become a city. And one thought that we had recently is we have 2 cars. We're thinking about maybe swapping out one of them for a hybrid and then garaging the other car and then buying electric scooters, because now that we've turned in from a small town into a city, like we're right in the heart of it. An electric scooter would be the easiest way for us to get from point to point if we're not leaving our general vicinity of where we live for groceries, going to restaurants, hitting up the park. Like, it's faster to just go on the sidewalk on one of these than to deal with the traffic, which wasn't, the roads weren't built for the kind of traffic we're getting now. So from I like this as a concept. I've never been on a rental one. I do really appreciate, Matt, your comment on it's creating jobs, it's infrastructure. Like, this is how we become a more future-facing society. And I also like the idea of less cars on the road. If there are ways that you can, take an electric scooter as opposed to renting a car or taking a cab or whatever, it's just better for the environment. So I see a lot of this as a win. The downside is there's the visual appeal, right? Like, people don't like the way they look. You also have to deal with people who, might not treat the scooter or people that are scooting around with respect, right? I think there was a whole South Park episode about the scooter invasion. It's very funny. I recommend watching it because it perfectly dissects this topic. It's just, again, like every topic that's on this show, it's take it or leave it. You either love it or you hate it. But I think there is potential for this to be a general good. We just might need to establish some more rules and regulations around them.
Yeah, I agree.
I think for me, you kind of you hit on all the points that I agree with. Like, for me, like, we've also got some really nice friends that we know that live in Destin, Florida, as an example, and they sound like they're in a similar boat as you, Anthony. Is they're so close to everything. They actually bought one of these super high-end golf carts. The big 4-seaters. And it's like they can take it because they're making them now where they're street legal. They have blinkers, they have headlights. You could technically get a tag for it. And if you're not getting on a major road and you can just take a little back road to like all the little areas, why not? The one benefit of this that I think is an obvious point, but one of the things that I really liked about it is it wasn't mine. I didn't have to worry about it, right? All those things that you're talking about with people drop kicking them off bridges and throwing them in the water. I don't have to worry about that. Like, from a consumer perspective, oh, look, there's a Lime scooter. I need to go 3 miles. I can either call an Uber, wait on the Uber, get in, go 3 miles, pay, I don't know, 25, 30 bucks for an insanely expensive 3-mile commute, or I can quickly scan it on my phone, zip down the sidewalk, and just leave the thing and go into the business or whatever. So I think that part of it is the one thing that draws me to this use case is the fact that, and it comes with a flip side to Anthony's point, it's the aesthetic, right? You don't want a whole sea of these parked out in front of your Starbucks. The Starbucks owner wouldn't like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But the Starbucks is an aesthetic that not everyone likes either. So,
but from a user perspective, that to me is such an easy way to get around to town, right? You go in, let's say you have a coffee and there's 4 of them out there. You need to go 2 miles, bloop, hop on. Now, of course, the other alternative is walk, quit being lazy. But if you want to get there quick, to me, this is a great option. But anyway,
I understand that. And also people that may not have a vehicle and they need to get to a job that's across the city. So to your point, there are some very practical things. I just think the aesthetic, I think, is a big one. And then, of course, the danger. People who maybe shouldn't be on them, still on them. I've seen people 2 up, 3 up. Guys, we could go on this all night. It's crazy. It's crazy in some of these cities.
On those things. And I'm like, that does not seem like it was designed for that.
No.
No.
What do you got for us today, Sterling?
Well, what I have to talk about today could be a brand new wave. No, it's not something that was just invented, but it's something that's picking up steam. We've heard about these smart rings, the new addition to sort of the smart watch here, and they've really come on strong. We have a lot of different manufacturers that have actually come out with these smart rings as of late. Samsung has one, several different manufacturers are starting to come out with them. And now the debate becomes, would you wear a smart ring over a smart watch? The author of this article goes on to talk about, as well as some of the other comments and a couple of other articles that are coming out around this tech, talks about the discomfort when trying to wear these watches to sleep. Many people do wear their watches to sleep in order to glean information about themselves. I know it's all that data that everybody's collecting about us, but I digress. The point is that they learn things about sleep. Perhaps they have sleep apnea. Perhaps they want to watch their blood or their heartbeat over time. So these are great tools while you're sleeping to go and map to see how your body is doing. Problem is, if you shift the wrong way, if you go, if you knock it against the pillow, it's not sitting against your body. You could lose hours at a time of that data. So it's uncomfortable, not as reliable as it could be in some other situations. Enter these smart rings. These smart rings can fit right on your finger. They tell you the same information, but at what cost? At what cost? Now are we, is this a new show of, being a part of a different type of society? Is this making you shed your smartwatch? Is it another piece of jewelry? Would you see it as jewelry? What are your guys' thoughts on the smart ring versus the smartwatch?
I'll let Anthony go first. I have some thoughts on this too.
I mean, I have a smartwatch, and mostly what I use it for is I want to know what the weather is outside, so I know whether or not I need like a raincoat or something. I love having my meetings right up at the top of the watch. I look at it and think, oh, I got Zero Gravity Live in 15 minutes. I better show up to work today. So, there's like, it's convenient. It's way more convenient than a phone. I've never worn this thing in bed. I've tried to nap with this thing on and I can't do it. Like I just rip it off, put it down. I can't. I'm a side sleeper, so it's getting in the way of my pillows.
Yeah.
I do love the device. I don't really track. I do fitness with it, but I'm not tracking or making any kind of informed decisions based on it. It's more just like, hey, I'm doing a workout. That's my heart rate on the screen. Cool. That's neat. I don't know what that means, but it's neat. Yeah. I would assume a lot of people are probably in the same boat where they think that they're gleaning a lot of good fitness info, but do we really know what this means? Are we doctors? Are we all doctors now? Right. So the smart ring, I'm sure there's a market for it. I'm sure it's super cool, but it's none of the features that I like about my smartwatch or that I take seriously about the smartwatch. So I won't be getting one until, I don't know, it makes finding out what meetings I'm running late for easier.
Yeah. So smartwatch also. Got the Apple Watch Ultra. I used to not wear a smartwatch to sleep. That said, maybe a year or two ago, we changed our home defense bedside safe, if you will, so a small gun safe, and it's from Hornady, and they actually have a RFID chip that can go right on the band of your watch.
That's
so
cool.
For me, this is a perfect reason, in addition to all the health metrics, to have this on while I sleep. It took me, maybe a few days to get used to having something on my wrist when I go to sleep, but now it's just second nature. But for all the reasons that I just mentioned, knowing I have access to that safe, knowing my kids don't because it's always physically, with me, that's really the justifier for me to wear this to sleep more so than the data that it's collecting while I sleep.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have the problem with it being too loose where, like you were talking about, Sterling, like some people wear their watches really loose and it can, you're right, it can give false readings. The challenge for me with the ring, because I actually looked at these in Best Buy about 6 months ago and I was in there and I almost bought one. Then I saw the price tag and I'm like,
how much was it?
It was like almost $400.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
At the time.
It's true.
And, I'm thinking, okay, first off, to have all the smarts in that tiny ring, the battery's got to be microscopic, so to me, I remember the early days of like the Apple Watch Series 1 that would make it from about the time you woke up until mid-morning and it would be dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, if the thing can't make it, I mean, I would arguably say at least 24 hours, if not multiple days of wearing it before you need to charge it, I would already disqualify it. But for me, also, to the point that Anthony made, it's like, yeah, it's cool to see your heart rate and, make sure that your oxygen levels aren't dropping for some weird reason. But if I'm already getting that on the watch, I don't need it on a ring. I would say where I see the rings being really useful is for people who prefer normal watches. And I also have like a really nice Breitling watch that I'll wear on occasion, but every day I'm wearing this guy. So it's like, if you're the type of person who doesn't want to wear a smartwatch because it doesn't look like, the OG watches, like the really nice watches, the ring is probably the way to go. Because to your point, it would be more of a jewelry item. You can get them in all kinds of different colors and different styles and things like that. I think that's going to be the main consumer, at least in my mind, because I would never imagine I would need to double up and have a smart ring and the Apple Watch. And I also can never imagine myself getting rid of the Apple Watch because of how seamless it integrates in the Apple ecosystem. Just like before this stream, we want to silence our devices. I literally hit one button and tap once, and I can put every Mac device in my vicinity on do not disturb until I leave this house with a geofence with one click. Yeah. Like, I don't have to go to the Mac. I don't have to go to the iPhone. I don't have to do it on the watch. It just does it with one click. So to me, that convenience, I'll never get rid of. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
So it sounds kind of like the reasons why you use the smartwatch really would dictate as to whether a ring would even fit your scenario. So, I mean, whether or not, you would even gain the data. I mean, why all of this data, again, is a whole nother subject, obviously, though. Maybe we revisit that when we're talking security, right? But I agree. These things I think are here to stay. I think we're just going to see more of it. And I'm interested to see where this ecosystem goes. Do we just do we start to wear things that are just sort of a collection? We wear different things at different times that all grab those things. Are we just grabbing so much data we don't need, to Anthony's point? I mean, that's a very good point. I would love to hear everybody who's listening. Do you wear a smartwatch? Would you wear a ring? Love to hear what you think there.
Well, I feel like when half your wardrobe has to be recharged every day, we have gone too far.
Do you remember the smart jackets that had the batteries built into them that you could charge your devices? They had like wires running through the lining.
Yes.
What happened to those?
With headphones that came out of the lining as well. I absolutely remember those.
Too many humans caught on fire, probably.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the smart ring, I think, is here to stay. I think it's successful enough. We're going to see it continue to evolve. And I guess it's kind of like we talked about with the Apple Vision. Eventually, there might be a use case where it's like, oh, this does more than it did, in V1, V2. And now I'm interested in it. But I think for today, you really have to be into like that whole tracking thing. But, to this month's theme, I love how simple they are, right? Like, it is so, you just put the thing on, as long as it's got a battery, it works, it feeds everything back. Like, that's simplicity defined.
Agreed.
And I think that's actually a really fun segue into my topic for today, because I'm trying to keep us on the path of simplicity. But before I show you what it is, question for you in the audience. Do you know what the majority of your household cleaners and soaps are made up of?
Oh, I feel like this is a trick question, but I also feel kind of
it is a trick question.
The answer.
Take a guess. Take a wild guess.
Water?
I was going to say
bingo. It's water. So check this out. This company, I found this article on TechCrunch. I'm like, this is perfect. 900.care. I have no idea if this company is like good, bad, legit, or otherwise. I just love what they're doing. They're selling waterless personal care products now and let you add tap water at home. And here's the thing, right? Like, they saw a way that they could simplify the whole healthcare scenario, or like not healthcare, but personal care setup. They remove the water. They sell you these tablets. It's a subscription service, so we can talk about that and roll our eyes in a minute. But they've removed the weight of shipping of water. They've removed the additional bottle size and all that. They're just selling you the chemicals you need to create soap or shampoo or whatever. And they've raised quite a bit of money as a startup doing this. So it's pretty exciting to me. I just love that they're thinking about how do I simplify something that we didn't even think was complicated in the first place. Like, I never thought shampoo was complicated, but it turns out there is still reduction to be made. There's simplicity to be had, and curious to hear y'all's thoughts.
So I love this idea, and it reminds me of the new dryer sheet like things for the washer.
We use those. Yeah, they're great.
And it's same thing, right? You got the big giant gallon and a half jug of detergent, or you take the sheet and throw it in and let the water do the work, right? So it's like I love the idea, and I feel like the other thing too with this, Anthony, is Amazon to me has become the gold standard. I feel like with commerce in general, and I think there's some things that people still like going to the grocery store and buying, right? Food products and things like that, but I also feel like there's been a shift in the past, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years, with more and more people getting stuff like this from Amazon. You know, you've got subscribe and save. You can get clothes. You can do the try before you buy clothes, where if you're not sure on your size, you can ship, 4 different sizes of the same garment for free, test them all and ship back what you don't use. And then you only get charged for what you do keep. So they are making it so much easier to do this online stuff. And to me, this is like prime example of where that's really going to take off. Is nobody wants to order a big giant thing of detergent. It weighs a lot, right? Amazon doesn't want to ship it if you're on Prime and it's free shipping, because that eats into their profit. I think this has got huge potential for way more than just like home healthcare or home care type products, right? I think there's so much that's made up of water that could be condensed down to this.
It's less plastic too, right? Like, you're not shipping the bottles anymore. You could put these in little paper bags or whatever. It's game changing. I agree. What do you think, Sterling?
I absolutely agree. I love this. First of all, I just want to say, Amazon, if you're listening, hey, we like sponsorships. Give us a shout. We know how to make your life simple, secure, and powerful. So give us a shout. Do you know what I'm saying? But outside of that, honestly, great find, Anthony. I love this. I love this for so many reasons. It cuts down on packaging, makes life easier. We usually have water where we are. To be able to add that, to be able to mix it and get a bunch of products. Listen, outside of this thing that we do, what we love to do for work, I have aspirations of riding my motorcycle all over the world, camping in some cool spots, going to some great places. I grab a couple of these things and I can take off, go wherever, add some water wherever I am. I can use my personal care products. I can wash my gear. I can maybe even use it for some cooking or some pieces like that. I love the idea that they're learning new ways to package things, to make them simpler, to make it lighter and more portable.
I think about Kool-Aid, right? Kool-Aid's a prime example. Like in the little individual packets, you just dump it in a bottle of water and there's your drink. So it's so many good use cases. Now, I'll tell you what we need to invent is the way to make the subscription service accurate. And
that's exactly what I was going to ask.
Well, and I've got so many experiences with subscribe and save where it's just wrong timing. You think you need it every 6 weeks, every 2 weeks, and it never fails. That's not right. You either need it more frequent, less frequent. You're building up a stockpile. You're waiting on it because you're out. There's bound to be a better way. And I don't know if it's like AI, if it's weight, if it's some sort of measuring device in the house that talks to Amazon or whatever. There's got to be a better way. Now, I'm testing it right now on my refrigerator. Back to the smart refrigerator, right? It does have Alexa built in, and it has subscribe and save with the water filter in the fridge. And I was literally reading it the other day because I have the light that's on, the yellow light, not the red light. And it says it will, based on your usage, it will pre-order a new filter before you run out. So I'm really anxious to see, does that actually work? Or is it going to turn red and here I am, still don't have my replacement filter. So I feel like this is great. The whole subscribe and save business model needs some improvement.
It's funny because I feel like we simplified products, but we've just made buying so much more complicated than it used to be. Example to your point, Matt, I just replaced my air filter on Saturday because my thermostat told me to. And I looked at it and I'm like, this thing isn't even dirty. Like, I went out and bought a brand new, I buy these nice, hypoallergenic dog hair filters. And it's like, well, I didn't need this. This thing's got another month of life in it, at least.
Yeah.
So they're not good at, and my thermostat isn't in league with the air filter companies, I don't think, to, get more sales. It's just, they're not good at figuring things out based on the data they have. And this is a point to more data collection, right? Like they're not measuring the right things to make the assumptions on when you need to resubscribe. I don't buy most of my products online. I go to stores because I'm a weirdo. But personal reasons, I like to go and just get the things I need from a store, bring them back home. But I can make those measurements. I keep lists, like I keep track of everything, and I never find myself in a situation where it's like, oh, my water filters out. It's like, no, I'll just buy in bulk, and then when it gets low, I'll just go buy more. I think that's a trade-off we've made with the online shopping generation. Is like now, we buy things when we need them, but we don't plan on buying things to have them. And it's a little bit of a mind shift that's happened where I think generations past would make lists, they keep track, they keep inventory. And we had a really good read on like, oh, I got to get more cereal because the bag's 1/3 the way down, where now it's like, I need more cereal. I got to go order some and it'll be here in 24 hours time. So something we could simplify is better understanding and improving that smart shopping process.
I think AI is gonna help us with that. And the reason why I think is we have a lot of that data right now. I just don't think we collectively do a good job of parsing. I think to Matt's point, parsing through all the data to grab the right data. There's almost so much data, it's noise. You almost need another type of engine, like an AI sort of neural engine that actually goes through and can actually be a little bit smarter about, it's not just this size of a house. It's this size of a house that has 2 dogs that have these kinds of hair that during this time, they're going to need to be, it's going to be a better way. And so
during pollen season, and it's raining a lot.
Exactly.
There's so many data points we could collect.
Little data points that are going to kind of watch those things. Kind of in our other side of lives, we talk about this a lot, watching these ransomware attacks, the types of things we're starting to watch for with the attacks, the types of things that these people do. So I think that watching the right data points, it's not just enough, for instance, with the attack analogy, to just look at IO, in your network. You have to look at other things, permissions and these types of, the factors of it. So I think in this way, I think we need to kind of grab that right data. Me personally, I'm just waiting for them to come out with a version of that where I can add water and have an old fashioned.
So maybe I'll bring that up on the next show. There actually is a device like a Keurig that will do that for you, Sterling.
Let's talk about it. If anybody's watching right now that owns one of those things, wants to hear us talk about it, put that in chat, please.
All right. Well, I thought this is a good topic to end on because it reminded me of us in a way, right? Like Object First UTP removes a lot of, we won't call it the water, but we'll call it the frustration of having to manage your backup storage. And I was like, hey, they're kind of doing the same thing we are. And to that point, if you're curious to improve your Veeam backups, I actually want to share. We shared this last week. I'm going to share it one more time because it's so good. Casey King, who may or may not be watching the show, awesome contributor to our Object First marketing team and content, wrote a blog about how simple we make the backup storage solution for UPI and how simple it is to go through our buying process. So if you're in the market looking for a new Veeam storage target, scan that QR code, give it a read, give it a look. I highly recommend it. Casey did an awesome job. And it's just one more way that we're simplifying everything. And I, for one, need simplification wherever I can get it.
Seriously.
So, gentlemen, as we close out today, any final thoughts on this is the last episode in our month of simplicity. So, any closing thoughts on our month of simple? Sterling.
Absolutely. I really think, first of all, I loved this episode. There was a lot of nuggets of sort of knowledge and things in ways that I think listeners, even us, we can take our lives and make it simpler. Just like we talk about, ransomware protection, keeping your data safe shouldn't have to be so complicated. Make things simple. I think what we talked about today was really stripping away a lot of the complexities, data we don't need, things that we can still use from the past into the future. So I really do think it really bodes well to take a second, think about how you can simplify the things in your life to give you back time and to really give you some of the knowledge that we need to make our day better. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah. No, well said, Sterling. I agree with everything. There was a lot of stuff covered, and I look at it like everybody's situation's different. I've got 2 young kids. We're all busy during the day, so anything that I can do to help simplify things around the house, I'm all for it. You guys have heard me talk about the robot lawnmower. Hey, you know what? That's 3 hours of my day I don't have to give up on the weekend. To me, that's simplifying yard work, just as another example. Some people might look at it as lazy, but it's like, hey, it's 3 hours. I'm not out there sweating. I'm not being with the family and kids on sports day, right? As an example. So I think so much of the home automation stuff that we cover on this show, it might sound complicated and oh my gosh, how does all this stuff talk together? But once you really peel back the layers, like Sterling's example with the plug, I mean, you set a schedule or you hit on off and it's that simple. Like it's not complicated. And the net benefit that it could potentially give you, depending on what you have connected to it, is awesome. So I think simplicity is critical. That's one of the reasons why, Object First here, we really strive to make sure our solution was simple. Because as you guys know, that are listening, that have worked with other storage devices in the past, it's never simple. You've always got some provisioning and configuration and things to do. So remember that when you're taking a look at us as a company. We love to keep things simple.
Great point.
For me, it's I love that, Matt. And I think back to 10 years ago when my wife and I used to stream on YouTube and how freaking complicated and just painful. We would spend like 30 minutes before each stream just getting the thing set up and making sure it connected. And here we are, right? We're streaming to YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're going to have podcasts go to every platform in a few minutes after this is done. We've simplified this process so much. And I think that's representative of so much of the technology and the advances we've made in the last 10 years for backup storage, for toothbrushes, for, scooters, everything. We're just taking everything to the next level. And I love it. I'm excited to see where we are 10 years from now.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I'll say, right? If it's this easy today, hopefully it's 10 times easier in 10 years. And that closes out this month on simplicity. Next month, we're focused on security. So prepare yourselves. I'm going to bring those hard topics again. I'm going to close this out with really disturbing, scary stuff. So be ready.
We'll be ready. Can't wait.
Can't wait.
All right, y'all. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure to follow us on whatever media you prefer. Stay weightless, stay frictionless, stay zero gravity.
See you guys.